Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. On behalf of the Northeast Teaneck Block Presidents Association, we are sponsoring our first series of We Are Listening session. And featuring today, which we're very happy to have with us, is our Deputy Mayor Danielle G. And our Councilwoman Denise Belcher. The great purpose in having them here is that they are willing to listen and want to hear from Teaneck residents. So we've decided that this is going to be something ongoing, and because of the mere fact that they were two concerned people that have been elected to this community and willing to listen, we have invited them in to be our first session. So I'm welcoming them and welcoming all of you. I'm now going to turn over to Dr. Pruitt, who is going to be our master of ceremony for this evening, and he will give you some little advice.
Okay. The rules of engagement. This is a listening session. The purpose is to discuss ways to improve the quality of life for everyone who lives in our township. We will not be discussing the war in the Middle East. Danielle and Denise will have, 3 minutes for an opening statement.
So I'm not going to use my full 3 minutes because I really want to spend the time listening, hearing from all of you, so I'll keep it really brief. I just want to say thank you all for coming out here in person. Oh, should I get closer? Is this better? Can you all hear me okay? Yes. Okay, so I'll keep it close. So I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming out. I see many faces that I'm familiar with, but also new faces, which is really exciting. We are here to listen to you. I'm going to be jotting notes down, so if I'm on my phone, that's why I'm going to be jotting down notes. We want to make sure we address all of your concerns. If there are thematic issues, we want to really capture those as well. And so really this is the time for you, not to be held to a 3-minute clock, like you are at the council meetings, to really ask any questions, share your concerns, and we'll respond.
Thank you, everyone. I would say ditto to that. We really kind of want to hear from you, but in preparing for the night and thinking about tonight, I kind of feel like it's like a back to school night, like when as a parent you bring your kids to meet your teacher. I consider you guys our litmus test as to how we're doing. So I think that is very important that we hear from you. But also I want to give you kind of like an idea of a scorecard, because we do pay attention to what we're doing. We do pay attention to the accomplishments, and I just want to mention a couple in the year and a few months that we have been there, almost a year and a half. We think about accomplishments. I think about the diversity and inclusion of land use boards. I consider that an accomplishment. Opening up the boards so that we have more transparency and visibility into what's happening in the township. That's vitally important. I think an accomplishment is that we stood up an infrastructure grant task force with our town manager. So we meet quarterly with our grant writer so that we can identify opportunities that our township can take advantage of, be it whatever. Be it infrastructure for, when I thought of the idea, I was thinking about our neighbors in terms of Bell Avenue and the flooding. And I was talking to Dean and I said, hey, are we really taking advantage of every grant that possibly we can apply for? So that's kind of like the origin of that. And we've met a few times and we have brought into the Historic Preservation Commission has come on board. Of course, he has all the key people from DPW to the various department heads and the civil engineer that's there, and we meet quarterly to identify things like that. Another accomplishment is the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. We brought that up in that and it's very important that we did because we're ending the third round by the end of this year, so we have the fourth round beginning of January 2025. And we want to make sure that we know and we are taking advantage of every opportunity that we can, but also that we pay attention to the new laws surrounding affordable housing. And I would also mention accomplishment was leadership TNEC, next Deputy Mayor, who worked diligently with our town manager to bring that up. So that's an accomplishment. And lastly, I just want to say community involvement. Prior to, I feel up until October 17th, we had some fantastic collaboration in terms of our community coming out and being involved and being mindful of wanting to serve. And I want to thank you all for that. Thank you.
Okay, unlike the council meeting, we're gonna have a conversation. You raise a concern, and they can respond. Who's first? Come on, Rich. Who's first? Anybody? Yes.
Okay,
Stand up and speak loud.
Should I introduce myself?
Sure.
Okay, my name is Belcher. I've been a resident of Teaneck since 1992.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I think that the general consensus in this room, hopefully, that climate change is real. Okay, and over the last couple of days, we have seen a tremendous amount of rain and wind and all this kind of good stuff in this section of the country, in this state. I recall a number of years ago that there was a project that the town promoted or instituted in which trees were cut back from your house, off the street, and all that kind of good stuff, you know. And I noticed that over the last couple of days, a lot of branches have been falling in the street. The trees don't have leaves on them, so, you know, the wind has been going through and branches are falling on people's cars, et cetera, et cetera. So I was wondering if the town could revisit some type of program to cut back those trees that are on the street. They probably can't go in people's backyards, of course, but just kind of look at instituting a program to kind of look at trees along the major streets in Teaneck, and especially those off of the major streets, because branches are falling all over the place now. Okay? Thank you.
That's definitely something I think we're experiencing too. You know, I was coming up from Washington today, and I noticed how many trees there are around, because we have so many trees that unfortunately have fallen because of the wind. I think we were kind of like experiencing a windstorm. So I think that's something I definitely want to look, and I took a note on that, because I think that's something that we can certainly see what kind of collaboration we have with like the utility companies, if they do this regularly. I do see on occasion they do come out and they're trimming back tree limbs from the utility lines and so forth, but I will certainly follow up on that.
Yeah, and I would just add, so I can't remember the exact statistic, but I think Teaneck has the most trees of any town in Bergen County. And, you know, it's beautiful, right? You want to live on these beautifully tree-lined streets, but the problem is that with all these winds and these storms, it creates a hazard for our residents. And honestly, because so many of the roots have been trimmed down, then the trees become unstable. And so I think this is certainly something we should revisit, and I'm happy you brought it up.
Yeah, we want everybody concerned to be heard, so let's try to be brief as we can from that side. I don't know what to do with these people over here. Who's next? Yes.
Hi, my name is Monica. I'm Roger, and actually, the first thing I want to say is thank you to both of you, and that we very appreciate you. And sometimes you have to go through things which are not right, so thank you. I just have two issues I'm concerned about, and I'd like to know more about. I received the assessment of my home. I live at 33 West Tryon Avenue. My mom came here at 68, and maybe you know better than I. You certainly did. But my house was assessed at double what it was before, and I know that we were told, well, not to worry, you don't don't see a big change in the taxes right now, but it's not, it won't take, you know, 1% point. You know what I mean? However we do it for mills, for the taxes on our homes to go from, in our neighborhood, approximately 9 to 10,000 to 20,000 overnight. And I'm 67 years old. I know that I don't have work full-time right now, but I know that from my friends that are retired, that's really hard. And young people with young families, that's my one concern. And my second, I know this isn't about work education, but I'd like to understand more how the council can impact the board of ed and our children, because I went to junior high school, and I watched as more and more of the courses have been pulled away from our children, particularly those that are in the honors range and whatnot. I just want to understand if there's anything that the council can do, or what we can do to impact this, because paying a lot of taxes and then most of our children's present. Thank you.
So, with the property tax assessment, you can't, what's the process called where they can go back and, after, blanking on the term, but you can go, there's a process by which if you think it was valued too high, you can go to the township and debate that. So we can, if you send me your email address, I can get you the information for the process to say, I think this was valued too high. I think what we've also seen with the revaluation is folks who have been in their homes for longer, the market value of their homes have not been, so the market values have gone up 60% across the entire town. That's just the market, have nothing to do with the revaluation. And we've seen that just across the real estate market. What I think we're seeing play out is that if you owned your home for a very long time, your taxes were based on that old market value of your home and not the new market value of your home. And so the way the math works out is when they change the property value of your home, they also lower the tax rate because the actual total amount that's being collected stays the same. So our old tax rate used to be 3.04 or something like that. The new tax rate is 2.046. So it's actually a lower tax rate, but when you apply it to that higher property value, then it may or may not go up or down. My tax rate also went up because I've been here for over 10 years. And so I think those who have purchased their homes more recently, because their property value was more accurate, they're not seeing as much of an impact. And so, so I say this, so we'll contact me, we'll get you the information for how you can figure out whether or not your property was valued too high. And perhaps that's one way you can lower your taxes, but I also think there's that other issue at play with just the general rising market value of our homes.
Yeah, I would just say that, revaluations by law, state law, it has to be done by, every 10 years. So the attempt is to make it as close, the assessed value as close to market value. So, the last valuation we had was several years ago. So many of us are seeing, not all of us are seeing an adjustment to, and the attempt is to bring that assessed value as close to market value. So it's almost like sticker shock to a lot of us. But it is an opportunity if you feel that you want to challenge that, you can. There are laws that basically allows you to challenge through our tax assessor's office and also through the county tax office.
I just remember the term. You can file a tax appeal. That's what it's called, a tax appeal. So we'll get you that information. And what was the second question from the board of ed? Can you just repeat the second part one more time?
Sure. I know this isn't the Board of Education, but I'm really, really concerned about a lot of the courses that have been taken out of particularly the high school for our children, because there used to be a lot more, and increasingly, almost every year or so, we see less and less options for our children. And given how much our taxes and that the majority of our taxes go to the Board of Education, I'd like to know what power does the council have in terms of impacting the Board of Education and those decisions, if any?
Yeah, so I don't think we have any formal power, but I think what we can have is some influence in terms of having a collaborative relationship with the current Board of Ed. One of the things that we're actually launching is a standing meeting with council liaison and a liaison where we're meeting on a monthly basis with the superintendent, with the town manager, to talk about what are some key issues that residents care on, or things that we can collaborate on. So in terms of course changes, we don't really, that's not in our purview, but we can certainly share that feedback with our Board of Ed colleagues. And then maybe maybe with the next iteration of this listening series, maybe we might want to invite a Board of Ed representative here so you can ask them some questions as well.
I was just add to that, that the collaboration, community involvement is vitally important. So basically, and I think that, just as our council meetings are very involved with community that comes out, I think the continued interest in the Board of Ed and speaking up and speaking out is very important as well.
Sorry, I'm done.
We're trying to record this conversation. I wonder if it would be too inconvenient for people with questions to come to the mic. Let's try that. You next.
Or we can just repeat them if you want us to.
Yeah, you next.
You want me to come to the mic or you repeat it?
Yeah, right here. This is the mic.
Okay. He's running it. He's running it. How you doing? My name is Brian Harnbrooks. I lived in Teaneck almost the whole life. I lived in Delaware, but I came on back in 2013 when my mom passed, took over the house, lived there now where I grew up. I'm concerned. I live on 36 Garden Street, and what I find challenging is that when you drive under that bridge to that side of Teaneck, it's a different town. And although many people have talked about moving to Teaneck because it's a utopia of racial harmony, it's delineated by the race line. When you come through that bridge, it's a totally different street. The garbage is maintained a different way, the regulations for the stores, how they look out front, what garbage is there. Even, I had to call the town council one day because when they were picking up the recycling, they just flung the bins. And when I go on Windsor Road, that's not how those bins are discarded. The way that side of Teaneck is regulated and treated is not the same as the other side of Teaneck, and you can feel it as soon as you come into that bridge. My car goes, the pavement, even if you go up Bogart and turn going to the high school, the pavement is totally different. They paved my street recently, thank God. But coming down Teaneck Road from that all the way till you get to Tryon Avenue, the stores are maintained differently, the way the regulation is. I don't mind the smoke shops, I don't smoke, that's not my preference, but the banner is laced up to the ceiling, and then the garbage isn't picked up on time, and then the bins are thrown, and then the garbage from Popeyes flies all the way down the street. It's just a very different way. And I'm going to segue that really quickly to talk about how we're not really addressing the racial disparity in Teaneck, because a lot of our towns members are not partnering in solidarity with the Black community to really understand what our experience is here. So the expectation of Teaneck is not really what it is. I was here when Philip Pinnell happened. I was part of the people that led the Teaneck High School walkout. I was a kid at the time. I was his age. And it unveiled a lack of solidarity in the town. And I think we're seeing that same unveiling of the town. And that's only because we're not actually pressing forward into being a town of solidarity. What happens is, on a sunny day when everybody's nice, everybody goes into their silos. We don't really communicate. We don't really know each other. We don't really know what's going on. And then something happens, and we realize we're in our silos. I was called the N-word by Teaneck police then, multiple times. Like, the Teaneck police were not having the protest. They started that uprising that happened in front of the high school. It was a peaceful vigil. I was there for all of that. We're going that way again, but it's because we're not paying attention on Tuesdays when everything is fine. When there's no political protest, when there's we're all in our silos. And I think there needs to be opportunities for people to know the history of Teaneck, why our parents moved here, what that was about, and then create community functions that we have that really work on integrating us so that even if we believe different things, we understand the people one-on-one. I'm not utopian. I don't think just because I understand if you hate me because of my race or my gender or anything, that's not going to change. But I do believe that if we actually talk about being community, when we start having these conversations and political things come up, because we're coming to this election and I'm quite nervous about what's going to happen. Teaneck is now a hot button on the news, so I don't know what that's going to create for Teaneck. And if we don't get ahead of it, we're going to be behind it. And it's better to be prepared than to be recovered.
Yeah, I'm going to start by just saying that I had unfortunately, when the Philip Pinello shooting happened, when the Philip Pinello shooting happened, I had just bought my house. I'm
89.
yeah, it was like, so 86, I came to Bogart Street. And it was horrific. I mean, to your point, it did illuminate the divide. And oftentimes it takes things like that really makes you realize that there's work that needs to be done. And I feel as if in the last 6 months, we are at that same place again. And how we're able to address that is very important, I think, and I do agree with you. Listening sessions like this, opportunities for the community to come out and be heard is important, but also I think cross-pollination. Just enjoying each other's cultures and backgrounds and learning from communities and so forth is vitally important. I think that it's important that we talk to each other and not past each other. I think it's important that we have safe spaces to talk. I think it's important that people not be labeled because people are afraid. I understand fear. I think as African Americans, we all understand what that means. So I think it's incumbent upon us as, speak of leaders in the town, that we find ways in which we can get out of it. We find ways to unite. We find ways to understand. Because you can't expect people to understand unless you understand, or have empathy or have compassion. And I think that's where we are right now. So I'm excited about wanting to do these listening sessions, and I invite the entire community to come out to it. I think finding spaces where whatever it is, be it, I think even like Leadership TNEC is an opportunity for people to come together and to discuss, issues that are sometimes difficult to talk about.
I love the idea of really delving deeper back into the racial history of TNEC, right? So I'm fairly new to TNEC. I moved here in 2013, and I hear the stories, and I've never had a real sit down with folks who've been here, 20, 30, 40 years to really talk about that racial history of TNEC. So I love the idea. I would love to figure out a way that we can help facilitate that. But I also want to touch on something you talked about the disparate resources or services across the different parts of town. One of the things I noticed since joining council is that the squeaky wheel often gets the oil in TNEC. And there are some parts of town that do not hesitate to email, call, send me a text, get my cell phone number. They will not hesitate if they see one off thing in their area. So and I won't say it's unique. Like, where is Roosevelt here today? No, he's not. He asked me so many times about these benches in Bernard Brooks Park. I've never seen benches get ordered so quickly, cement poured so fast to get this done, and they're going to get done because he was so vocal about it. And then I'm looking at Natalie Addison. They were telling me about the bathrooms in Rhoda need these support handles. Literally the next week after I told Dean this came up in SCAD, they put the support handles up. So I think that there are lots of issues at play, but I think there's an opportunity to educate community members that you can speak out when you see things that you don't like. Contact your council members, email the town managers. We have to empower ourselves to be that, the squeaky wheel. Otherwise, you'll end up where you feel like certain towns are getting more resources than others, when oftentimes we're not speaking up enough about things that are bothering us in our neighborhoods.
Is that victim blaming?
I hope it's not, because it's not the only reason, but I think it's one of the things I have witnessed, and I don't mean for it to be victim blaming, but you have to let us know what are the issues that you're seeing so that we can address them, because we will.
Heard. My only biggest point about that,
Okay.
in the spirit of conversation,
You
my
had
only
a
biggest
moment.
point about that is just that
I
if
know, 'cause otherwise we're not
garbage
gonna
has to be
give everybody
taken
a
out,
chance.
and people know that garbage needs
Who's
to be
next?
taken out. That's all.
Wait, can I just answer the garbage thing?
Darrell Green.
He's moving on.
Because the garbage is not managed by the township.
Got it. But I mean, you mean on the street, it's not managed by the town?
No, only the recycling. Garbage you have to
In the
hire
area.
out your
I got it.
garbage.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Darryl Green, Teaneck resident since 1976. I want to ask a very sensitive question here, or make a sensitive statement. It appears that council is not cohesive. And I want to thank you for having these sessions. But at the end of the day, it's about the votes. How can we as a community, because I truly believe that if you ladies were to walk on water, you have people that would say you're only doing it because you can't swim. I feel that how can we as a community help you be successful? Because no matter what we say, if you don't get the votes, it's not going to happen. So what can we do to help you be successful? Because this is not the Teaneck that any of us grew up in. Our Teaneck is very different, it's very divided. We're trying to do initiatives to bring everybody together. What can we do to help you?
I mean, the most powerful thing each of us have is a vote, right? That's our voice. And so the biggest thing you can do, we have an election coming up this November, is vote for the candidates you believe share your values, right? And so if there are things that you want to happen in this town, things that you want to see change, pay attention to who the candidates are. Understand what it is that they represent and the issues that are important to them. And really take your vote seriously. It's precious. And what we've seen consistently is that certain areas don't have as high of a voter turnout. So how do we help get our voters to the polls? How do we ensure that everyone is exercising their right to vote, not just during presidential elections, but every single year? There's a Board of Ed election every single year. And if you really think about it, it has the most impact on your, on your kids, on your families, right? And so these local elections are really important. And I think the biggest way you can make sure your voices are heard is by paying attention and making sure that everyone is voting.
Yeah, I would also say your vote is your voice, and it is so vital. It is so vital that you do get out in our community, find votes for people that you feel have the same values that that we all hold dear. Growing up in the town, raising your family in the town, sending your kids to school in the town, all the things that you hold dear are important in terms of you getting out to vote. Also, I would say the block associations and collaborating and supporting your block association, communicating in the block associations is so important, because it's almost like that bat call that goes up in the sky when something happens in our town. And it's important that we communicate so that we all are in the know, because sometimes I may see a neighbor and they may not know. They may say, oh, I didn't know, or I wasn't aware, or whatever the case may be. So I think that communication is vitally important, that we're talking to each other in sessions like this.
And I'll just add, if anyone wants to get involved in terms of helping folks get registered to vote, there are lots of ways that you can get involved. Please come see us. We're happy to connect you to ways that you can get involved.
I'm about to speak it, but District 9, 10, 11, and 12 get 50% registered voters to the polls. The rest of the town is in the 20s. Mr. Young.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Yoff. I've been a Teaneck resident now for 45 years. So I have a couple issues I wanted to raise. One has to do with pedestrian safety and car safety in town. So I was recently in San Diego, and I was on a beach south of San Diego, right near the Mexican border. And as I was driving through that area, every single street had street bumps and dips. And as a result, you could not drive you could drive 25 miles an hour for half a block, and then you had to slow down. And it really made a difference. It's not as busy an area as here, but still in all, certainly on our side streets, to begin to look at how do we slow traffic in town, I think is one piece. The second thing is, in terms of safety, is sidewalk safety. I'm a co-leader of a neighborhood association northwest of Cedar Lane, and people have complained to me about the sidewalks. Now, what I did is I went to the dean, manager, and I said, listen, our sidewalks are a mess. He said, well, make me a list of the houses. I wasn't gonna make a list, walk all over the place to make a list. I asked him to send somebody out, and I gave him the parameters of the neighborhood where I walk my dog. And lo and behold, every sidewalk now in that area has been fixed. I think the town should have, I don't know what you call it, somebody who works for the town that goes from district to district and walks around and marks those sidewalks that need to be fixed. You know, we have an aging population, and so I'd like to know some input on that. That's one issue. And as you both well know, that one of my big issues, and let me first thank you just for doing this job, because it is a tough job. And so you know my big issue is development in town. I don't want Teaneck, and most of my neighbors and the people in my and the people I've heard from the residents who have come out to forums don't want massive development in town like what's going on in Hackensack. So I'd like some input. I've asked at a council meeting, I've expressed my opinions about what should happen with the areas in need of redevelopment around Beverly Road and American Legion Drive. I think, you know what my position is on that, because I've expressed it rather clearly several times. But I'm also concerned about development in other parts of town, especially along State Street. There are a lot of parcels of land there that have been declared areas in need of redevelopment. And for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it means the zoning goes away and then the town can do whatever it wants with those properties. So I'd like some input about what your thoughts are about what should happen in these areas.
Okay, so you guys know we're in the middle of a master plan. And basically the master plan is about ready to be turned over to the planning board. We did have a lot of community input in terms of what we want to see in terms of development within our township. I do agree with you that there have historically been issues with tools such as AINR, areas in need of redevelopment, was used by prior councils as a development tool. And it became problematic, especially if you ever go over to Alfred Avenue and you see what's across the street from Mr. Baker's house. That should never have happened. I truly believe that should never have happened. It just, the size and the scale of it is just a monstrosity in terms of, why it's there, it's a problem. I think that the fact that we have a master plan, the master plan is going to be reviewed. We still have community input that will be happening as well. But I think looking at tools like, that speak to how we want our town to develop. One of the very first things that I was involved with was an ADU ordinance, where we are looking at ways in which how can we address housing other than just having a developer come in and build a 10-story luxury apartment complex. What are some of the alternative ways in which we can help our town in terms of developing, adding housing, but also keeping the look and the feel of our town that we all have come to love, that we are still a suburban town, and that we want to retain those things. So I think that's vitally important. To your first point, I have always believed that we definitely need a code enforcement person. Okay, I think it's just in general. I mean, it could even be starting out as a part-time person. But I think it's important that every town has ways in which you can have all kinds of laws, but if you're not enforcing them, it becomes a problem. So I am definitely advocating for that. But I just want to say that you guys know that the 4 nodding heads is what gets things happening in the council. So we can say no to a development. We can say no to a particular project, be it Stop and Shop development, whatever. But if they have the votes, you guys know the answer to that, what happens there. So I just want to underscore, voting in this coming election is vitally important.
The other thing I'll add on the development front is I think what I've observed from previous councils, they're using the development as a means to identify new revenue going forward for the township in a very high rising inflation environment where everything is getting more expensive. We need to find other sources of revenue for the township other than development. I think that was the council's expertise, and so that's the route that they've gone historically. I don't think that they've made 100% smart choices, as Denise already mentioned. But I think the key is one way to combat the reliance on development is to look for other sources of revenue that we're trying to look at now.
Who's next? Come on.
I don't think I need the,
Huh?
I don't think I need the microphone. It's hard for me to
She needs you here.
hear. Oh, you need the microphone? Oh, okay. My name's Johanna. Hi. I want to also comment on pedestrian safety. That's why I came tonight. The older that we get, all the material that we get in the mail says keep moving, walk, this, that, get your steps, and then you go out to do that, and it's really kind of dangerous. And Glen Point Hotel is terrible in that sense. Now, I'm assuming that it was built in a time, the car was the main thing, but, if people are out walking, there's no marked way to get, say, from Arbor Terrace. Those people are frail. If they wanted to go across the street, good luck. And there are curves, there are buses that are coming and going. I saw an accident once there as people were getting onto DeGraw Avenue from Glen Point, and this person came up walking her dog who lived there, and she said, oh, it happens all the time. And it's like, really? But anyway, you have to really, really be careful if you're walking around there. The other thing is that intersection at Teaneck Road and Cedar Lane. It's the people who are crossing, and the hospital is there. You have 1 minute to get across the street, and the traffic has grown so much in Teaneck. It's really dangerous, and you have people coming from the hospital turning left, onto Teaneck Road, and if you're walking with your back to those turns, I always, I just keep looking back, and sometimes I just put out my hand, because if there's a space, not everybody does this, but a lot of people, there's a space to get behind you or in front of you, even while you're walking, they will. And I think probably a lot of them don't live here, and they're just on their way either, to some other place or going home. So I'm just concerned about the ability to stay active in your own neighborhood. And I think somebody should go down there to the hotel and just try to walk around and see what it's like, really. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Sure. I just want to say that a component of the master plan is safe streets as well. We are, age-friendly, for an example, that an entity was involved with having input as well. I think that we also have some legislation with the Safe Street ordinance that speaks to how we can slow traffic. But one of the things that Danielle has said earlier is that, it is the squeaky wheel. So if you see a challenging intersection, bring it to the town manager, because they will actually do a traffic study. We have people that will go out and they will, count the number of cars and the number of pedestrians within an hour. And we do a lot of that on the planning board, and that developers are mandated to do traffic studies when it comes to new development. We also have passed a new law that basically puts more of the onus on the developer to pay for those types of inquiries, in terms of traffic and how it impacts the quality of life within our township. So certainly, if you see something you think, well, this intersection could use something, the light could change a little differently, or maybe a little longer, or whatever the case may be, certainly bring it up to us.
Who's next? Nadia.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everyone. Nadia Hussein. I wanted to address the question that you asked about what was the Board of Ed doing. So I served on the Board of Ed for 1 year. It was a pleasure to be there. And I wanted to answer one thing that you mentioned, but there was a lot of program cuts. Many of us may not realize that about 9 years ago, our Board of Ed lost about $10 million. So there was a big budget cut, and as a result, they lost a lot of the programs that they had. Moving forward, though, Dr. Andre Spencer, he was hired last year, and he's making a lot of improvements in our public school. So our high school has been around for 100 years, but he's the first superintendent to come in and to implement an associate's degree program for the high school students. So it started with the associate's degree. He's also implemented a CTE program, Career Technical Education. So every summer, he's working he has staff who will try to get internships for high school students to get them career-ready opportunities, for example, plumbing, electrical. Because let's face it, not all of our kids want to go to college, right? And that's not always the most profitable way. So they want to do something else. So he's working with Holy Name and other institutions to give them career technical opportunities. So when they graduate high school, they can say, okay, we have this in our pocket, this is what we can do with ourselves. I know that there's also, they're trying to implement an IB, International Baccalaureate program, and I heard about a medical magnet program. So from what I can see, he has a fantastic staff. They're trying to sow the seeds of greatness into our kids. So it's in the process, but like everything, a seed it takes time to blossom. So it's the start of it. So I think in a few years, you'll really see the program and all of these wonderful things that he's putting in start to really take root and to grow. And we have Dr. Klein. He is a current board member. I'm sure he's welcome to give you more information if you'd like. To answer your other question about how is it that council affects Board of Education. If you Google this, Montclair and pilot programs, right? So pilot programs are payment in lieu of taxes. It's where council chooses to use AINR to build these huge apartment buildings. And in Montclair, they built huge apartment buildings. And as a result, what happened is that the next year, Montclair had to lay off 33 students, 33 teachers from the school district. The following year, they had to lay off 22 educational associates. People don't realize that these pilot programs, when they come in, the current majority council chooses to use these pilot programs to build apartment buildings. They could be used for other things, for commercial, for retail stuff, but they're specifically choosing to use it for apartment buildings, right? When they bring these huge apartment buildings here, these apartment buildings don't pay their fair share of taxes, and their tax money does not go to the public schools. So therefore, we're getting an influx of kids. There's no tax money there to pay for this. As a result, what happens is that there's less funding, and as we have to lay off teachers. So please, you're welcome to Google it. It's Googleable, Montclair and pilot programs. And my question now, I apologize, it's too long. I want to answer your question. I love that you guys are listening, because the current majority does not listen. They sing, they hear, but it goes like this, right? So we appreciate your listening and your feedback. I would like to know what are some of the alternatives, because I'd like to see what are the current ideas there is to bring in development, to bring in more income, economic growth into TNEC. Because I feel that's where we're missing, and I would love to see that our storefronts stay open for more than a year, more than 2 years. So what are some of the current ideas you guys have to bring in more economic growth into town? Thank you.
So I just want to clarify one thing on the pilots, just to really clarify what's going on with them. What the pilot does with the new developments is someone comes in, buys a plot of land that had no taxable revenue associated with it, or they were paying conventional taxes on that piece of land. They build up this property and they cut a deal with the township to agree on a payment in lieu of taxes, right? So for a set period of time, usually 30 years, anywhere from 15 to 30 years, they agree on this payment, which is usually lower than what a conventional tax rate would be. And so I think that's what Nani is speaking to in terms of the pilots versus conventional taxes. And what happens is when you agree on a pilot, when it's conventional taxes, a portion of that taxes go directly to the school board. When it's a pilot, all of the tax revenue goes to the township, and then they pay, give the school board their portion. There are options where you can, in advance, agree to set aside a percentage for the Board of Education. So in terms of one of the things that we've been looking out for is, like, how can we get more creative if we are stuck in a pilot type of agreement where a developer, where there's already been an AINR, and we're in the negotiation process, what can we do at this point to ensure that it is a fair share and that the school board's getting their fair share as well? So it's a great point, but I just wanted to share a little bit more nuance around that. In terms of new sources of income, one of the things, and I'm not, there are mixed feelings on this, but one of the things that we've been exploring is cannabis revenue. There's one area that's already designated or zoned for cannabis, but one of the questions is, should we be looking at business districts for additional cannabis zoning if there is an appetite for that? There are towns, Rochelle Park, for example, who have generated almost 7 figures of additional revenue to their municipality through cannabis. There are all sorts of ideas in terms of economic growth on Cedar Lane. I think this is the issues with the dying main streets are not unique to Teaneck, right? This is happening across America, and so one of the things that we've talked about, we had a forum a couple months back. What can we do? What are there some examples of what folks have been doing in other towns across the country to bring back some more economic growth to the main streets? So these are things that we're looking at right now in terms of potential new sources of income.
I just want to mention the pilot, programs. I think it's important that we hold developers to account. I think previously there have been situations where pilots were just kind of like handed out, as opposed to making these developers work for something. For example, was 189 the Plaza. That development came down several stories to make it more agreeable to the community. We looked at different things like, instead of doing a 30-year pilot, to doing a 20-year pilot. So that, so it's like we can push back. We can ask for certain things. And I think that that's why it's important that we serve on land use boards. Our land use boards represent all people within our community. So that it's not just, development that's happening in one area of town and it's like, well, it's, I'm okay with it as long as it's not in my backyard. Well, when it's in our backyard, we have a different stance on it. We begin to say, okay, well, you know what, this is around the corner from where I live, so I have a certain amount of expectation in terms of what I want to see. So I think that's the one thing I wanted to mention. Also, there are other ways in which we are trying to find means by which to, and this came out recently in the budget meetings, there was an actual, I believe the fire chief brought up the fact that, what his budget was and so forth. One of the things we realized, we're one of the very few towns in Bergen County that does not charge for CCOs, which is Certificate of Continuing Occupancy. So on transfers of homes, when people are selling their home, most towns, as real estate brokers, will apply for a CCO, and there's a fee for that. Typically, it's $100, maybe a $200 fee. Oftentimes, it's borne by the seller, but the seller's getting typically a big chunk of change. So that's one area we identified as a means by which we can use that revenue and begin to charge to receive some revenue there. So there are ways in which we can continue to look for ways that is not just about development.
All right. There's some people who have a burning question and they just want to get on up here and give it to us. Otherwise, I'm going to ask a question. But let's have somebody else do it.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Paul. Been here in TNA for over 30 years. Just real quick, we've been talking about development. And before the COVID thing, there was that place at State Street. I was wondering if that's still happening, where the dentist office used to be. I was wondering if that's still happening. And you were talking about a place where they lowered the amount of stories. That's the one near the bank, right? That they said they wanted to do 12 stories. Yeah, I was wondering about that too. Like, is that still happening?
Yeah, it's been at 12. No, it's not 12, it's like 6 stores, maybe 5, actually.
Yeah, because they wanted 12,
Yeah,
right?
it came down literally half the size that was originally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, he asked what I wanted to ask, so, but yeah, that's one of my concerns. As far as people getting together, and my man was talking about people being in silos and stuff, and, you know, I was wondering, do they have like a community garden or something like that here? Something that everybody can do together?
Yes, there is a community.
They do, huh? Maybe we should talk about that more.
Let me answer that. Over in the far, I guess, if you go on East Teaneck Road, no, I'm sorry. If you go down East Cedar Lane to the end, there's a pretty good sized garden there, and people can get plots and stuff. It's a nice place to go. You should visit, especially now.
Actually, I've walked past it, I've seen it. I was thinking it should be in Boutique, but yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to mention one other thing about that development on Lane Plaza is, and this may not seem like a big deal, but it kind of speaks to the question about walking and making our town more walkable, walking friendly. In terms of the site plan, one of the things that the planning board really insisted on was bicycle rack. Just making sure that there are, bicycle racks that are on a development. Another thing that I think is important is that we asked the developer, he actually, as a part of his plan, he's putting a mural, an art mural that's going to be painted by an artist within our township on one of the sides of the building. So that speaks to the art and how art and culture is so important to us in our township. So it's those things that are important to us as community members that we want to see our development look like. We just don't want to see, tall buildings that mean nothing, but they have some kind of character.
Come on now, who's next? I don't want to ask my question. Nobody else has a question? You only get one shot.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is E.J. I'm Emmy, Teaneck resident, 1075 Jerry Street. Most people know me as Donnie. So, a couple of questions. What is the objective of the council, one? And what do we as residents truly need to know about what's happening in Teaneck?
Very broad question.
It is. It very is. Have time. Take your time.
Well, the second part again, so what is the role of council and?
So what is the objective of the current council, right? And what do we as residents truly need to know, really need to be aware of, like what's happening? Because I don't know about you guys, I really don't know what's going on in Teaneck, right? So I've been going to these meetings, to the council meetings, and since I've been going to these meetings, it's been nothing about what's happening with, the protest that is going on, and frankly, I'm gonna be honest, that doesn't really affect me, right? So, but what else should we be discussing? Because again, the whole time is dealing with this component, right? And why are we spending so much? That's not affecting the whole community, right? So, what are the agendas? Like, what is on the table, and what we need to really be galvanizing again? So come out and say, yeah, we need to go vote. What am I voting for? Like, what should I be doing? I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling because I really, really don't know. You know?
Can I substitute your question for mine?
Go ahead.
How do we return this wonderfully positive, safe community? How do we manage to kind of bring ourselves together again?
So can I say something real quick though? Right. So I haven't. Yeah. So I'm here now. Right. So I've been a Teaneck resident for about like 10 years. My wife grew up here. Everyone talks about, you know, the Kumbaya days where everyone's together, right? I wasn't here, right? So, but I've spoken. My wife grew up here, right? And we have to be honest with each other, right? We're not together. We've never really been together, right? It's just everyone is in their silos and they think that's togetherness. It's not. So we need to be honest and figure out, well, if we really want to be together, what does that look like? What are the initiatives? Like, what should we do to cultivate that? Because I have children here and they're growing up in Teaneck. Hopefully, they get to see that because that's what I'm fighting for. That's why I'm participating in a lot of the things that are currently happening. And this is it. Like, I don't know if anyone ever really wants to say that out loud, but it's the truth. And the truth needs to be said, and the truth needs to be understood and move forward. Until we address that, we're not going to ever be together. I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry, not sorry. What's up, Al?
That was a tough one. So many tough things to unpack there. So where to start? All right, the objective of council. I think the objective of council is to make sure that we maintain a township where every resident feels safe and they can live and thrive and pursue happiness in the way that they so choose. I think that is the long-term objective of council. In terms of how do you figure out what you should be paying attention to and you know what are the things you should know about, I encourage you to continue to attend the council meetings. That's where you see everything. Read the agendas. The agendas come out the Thursday before the council meetings. Download them, read the agendas. That's where you can really stay abreast about what's going on in town. There are some key issues that we can run off the list, but I think that's the best way long term to really understand what's going on. In terms of the whole silos in town, yes, and I heard Mr. Brooks say it earlier, right? There was this idea that Teaneck was this utopia, right? The first town and the first town to voluntarily integrate their schools, right? But then we saw in the 90s, wait, hold on, that utopia maybe wasn't quite the utopia we believed it to be. Or you see how people live in their own silos now, right? Like our children don't necessarily all go to school together. But we don't all eat together. So we see those silos. But I want to say, I see areas where we do come together. The fact that we have this Rhoda Center where you see children of every background taking classes together. You see them playing sports together. I just worked on a program called TILT, Teen Interns Learning Together. They work on projects in the community, literally trying to figure out how to bring different community members together. And we also had TLC, the learning community, where high school students from both public and non-public schools were coming together to provide tutoring to middle school students. So there is community building happening in small pockets. I think to the extent that we can continue doing more of that, I think that would be wonderful. The Advisory Board and Community Relations, they are currently signed up to take part in some empathy training, really trying to acknowledge what is going on in the town and knowing that the way that we are communicating with each other now is not working. There's got to be a better way to listen and understand one another. And so there are things happening. Are we perfect right now? No. I am optimistic that we're starting to do the work. There are people who are engaged and want to do this work, so we can get to a place where there is more community building and there is more finding of common ground.
Yeah, I would say that it's just, for me, for what the council is supposed to do, it's supposed to be about the people's business that live in Teaneck. That we need to be focused on things like quality of life, like, leaf collection and potholes, and how we can go about making sure that we have affordable housing, that everything is not market rate, but things that are affordable, that our children are safe, our streets are safe, our where we live and raise our families are good, wholesome, streets and so forth. I think when we unfortunately get involved with other issues, it puts a strain on our ability to just focus on the people's business of Teaneck. So to the degree that it's important that you come out, you speak up, you ask questions. Ask questions. If you see something that you're questioning, certainly bring it up. Come before good and welfare. One of the things that Danielle and I have tried very hard to do is to have all voices heard. Something as simple as, let's listen to everybody. Everyone has a right to speak. Okay, yeah, you know what, we're going through a difficult point of time right now, and yes, our good and welfare may go beyond 11 o'clock, but it's not gonna always be like that. And if we allow people to speak, then things potentially will get back to normal because people will feel that they're heard. And that's all that oftentimes people want, they just want to be heard. So I would just encourage you, come out, speak up.
There are lots of questions, Dr.
Who's next? Robert Top.
Okay, if I can speak without the microphone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I moved to Teaneck originally 76 years ago in 1948. I was away for many years, but my family was deeply involved in the integration of or desegregation of the Teaneck public schools. And I was wondering if it was possible on May 13th, which is the 60th anniversary of the vote when my father, who was VP of the Board of Education, made the motion to institute busing to desegregate the schools. That is the anniversary, and I was thinking there are a few of us who are still around who lived through that time. I don't know how much longer, but it would be wonderful if we could have some program that would educate you about that history. There's a few of us who lived through it. Jackie Cates, who was a couple of years behind me in high school. There are many of my classmates from the class of 1959, and we were, I have to say it, we were honored by the council because since our 50th reunion in 2009, we have been giving scholarships to Teaneck High School students, and this year we will hit $112,000 of scholarships. Class of 1959. Anyway, I would ask you if we can plan a program around May 13th to educate this town about the history and the struggles. It was 11 years of struggle to get to that night. And thank you.
Barbara, I love the idea. We actually, if you're not aware, we ordered a marker that's going to be placed, the historic marker is going to be placed on Bryant School. As you're speaking, you reminded me, I just sent a message to our town clerk to see where we are with the plaque, because I thought it was going to arrive before the anniversary date. So perhaps we could even do something around the placement of the marker and some sort of a ceremony or event to commemorate this. I think would be absolutely on point. So I love the idea. We'll follow up on that. Absolutely.
I just want to add to that, the Historic Preservation Commission was very instrumental in that marker. And I do know that it has been ordered and we actually saw the wording of it, it's beautiful. So definitely, I absolutely feel that there should be some type of commemoration once we do an unveiling of it. I also want to mention, I think that something's important. We have, the Historic Preservation Commission has come out with a really nice historic interactive map, and it speaks to different historic things within our township. And I encourage you to go to the website and look at it on our town website. And if you see something that you feel you'd like to see added, by all means, bring it to my attention. I sit as a liaison in the historic preservation.
It's a wonderful idea. I just want to make sure we include those kids, and I know one of them, who was the first people to be in the integrated school system.
Right here. Right here.
The second piece, and I'm not supposed to talk, was we also have to let people know that bricks got thrown through some board member's window. Okay, let's not push it behind us. Let's face the whole thing. Who's next?
This gentleman from Waynesboro, Mr. James.
Ellsworth James, Boyd Street. I've lived in Teaneck since 1990. In my lifetime, I've come to realize that everything is generational. In the 1993-94, we have created the Bow East Street Block Association, and many other blocks associations, after that. Within that time, we were able to make many changes in Teaneck. For example, the school board. Because only one black person was on the school board. The block associations came together and we changed the face of that. The township council was just the same thing too, and Henderson. And we were able to change that as well, but they coming together the number of block associations that we've had over the years. But Mr. Tupper was one of those persons during the time of the block associations when you walked Teaneck Road, also helped to make sure that the master plan of Teaneck, all of us work together. Mr. Bob Tupper, but let's call say that and that matter. Now, with the block associations, what we have done, we are able to make certain things happen. For example, Pernell. Remember the Pernell that was shot some time ago? There's a rift between police and community for a long time. And one of the times I spoke to Officer Harrison. He came to our meetings, block association meetings, and asked, how can we bring community and police together? So what we did, the organizations got together, put a bunch of flyers out there, and they had a meeting right at the school on Teaneck Road there, Troy Avenue. I was surprised to see there's wall to wall, because everybody was just about surprised that we're coming together. Nearly all the police were there. Many people from the community was also there. The meeting was very boisterous for the first time, because people were still angry, and they exchanged so many ideas. The second meeting was much better, and the third meeting got better. Out of that, we have created what is called community policing. And that community policing worked well for Teaneck because it's somewhat different than the regular police force. It intermingles with us in the community itself. Any issues, the community police were there. In our general meetings, we can ask anybody from the community policing to come. And they will come. And then we get information back and forth. Also, one of the things that also said, there were many complaints in the suburbanite because people were talking about the things that happen in Teaneck more often than before, so we understand how things went. When there were issues in Teaneck, whether from the Jewish side or our side, we're able to come together collectively to resolve those problems within Teaneck. Even with the town, with Judge Young, and we have some issues with the school and some issues going on with the schools, we came together, township manager and all, and we were able to resolve those problems. Tonight, I thought this meeting would be more or less talking about how can we resolve issues, rather than a township meeting attitude, so everybody can have a good sense of how we can bring Teaneck back together again. That generation has moved on from 20 years to 30 years now. So we need to have more block associations, people talking to one another. And when issues are there to be resolved, we don't necessarily, we go to township, yes, in the general order, but we should be able to come together collectively like now and talk about the issues that is so hard to talk about. So that's why I said tonight, I thought this meeting was more of one to hear, or hearing, and not so much of the council, and not so much of the township council meeting attitude. And that's what I like to say, but we can do it again. It simply means that we have to create more block associations and coming together in a setting. We can talk more and make more things happen in Teaneck. Thank you.
Since you mentioned community policing, I just want to give a shout out to Officer Gloria in the back, who is part of our community policing department. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. I agree. We definitely want more opportunities for folks to get together and discuss the issues. Yeah.
One thing that I can say, having been in town for 40 years, we used to have, we would all remember people like Mrs. Avery and Mrs. Mayberger. These are people that were they were like the first organizers in our town in terms of block associations, and Mrs. Wilson and so forth. And one thing I want to say is that it's so nice to see that there are new block associations being formed, and that you will seem to be collaborating, so that there is an overarching block association. So I think that's another means by which we can connect and cross-pollinate. So it's not just like I'm a member of EVNA, the block association, but that when you come together and we have other block associations that work together, I think that's very powerful.
And then really quickly, Barbara Toppler, so the event around the marker is planned for November of this year. Apparently there's another date that they're commemorating in November, so that's when the marker will be placed.
Mr. James mentioned block association. If you have a problem in your neighborhood, send 5 people every week to the council meeting and talk about it. Good things will happen. Next.
My name is Vern Mayburn. I am Vice President of Voorhees Street Association. I'm also Secretary for the Northeast Block Association. One thing's for sure, I don't think that we're involved as enough. I'm out in the streets and I've decided I don't want to be a part of this town anymore. Out of all these years, I grew up out here. I'm ready to leave because we have a council that doesn't care about the whole town. I was late because when I was coming out, there was a young lady, a new neighbor on another block. And she was asking me, what's going on in Teaneck? And I said, I'm going to a meeting right now. I was trying to get her to come. But the thing that bothers me the most about Teaneck is that I don't feel I have a voice anymore. I feel that no one on the council, except for you two, I do have to say, at least you'll listen and you'll try to come up with some kind of solution. And everybody else, I feel like I'm in the Middle East, which bothers me a lot because I just want to care about what's going on. Not necessarily with my block because I'm in the schools. which would be nice to have children involved in what Barbara was saying. I find people are angry with each other in this town. Where the gentleman was saying it was not kumbaya, yeah, it was, even when the elections came out, it was neighbors working together to put people on. It was nice politics, but TNEC is a reflection to me right now of the whole country. Don't give up. Right now I'm going through y'all haven't seen me out here. I'm going through a really dark place with how after this October 7th situation. Which brings me to what I'm going to talk to you all about. I go on the other side, not the Jewish side, not the black side. I've been going, it's a South area that nobody touches during elections or anything. And I just go and talk to those people. They didn't know that there's a monument that's going to represent the Holocaust on the middle of the green. And that's what I want to know. How do we reach everyone in TNEC? Because what I'm finding is we in the Northeast might know what's going on and we're fighting. But there's a whole lot of people like on the South side that don't have a clue what's going on. The reality of this monument on the green, it's not going to represent the entire town. It's a Jewish Holocaust monument that is going to be as tall as if anyone goes to Foster Village. Am I wrong? Y'all don't want me to say this stuff?
I just feel like we didn't tell the whole picture. So
okay, well, I'll let you tell the whole picture. I'm just gonna let you know how I feel. This thing is gonna be humongous. The people that were on the committee, and they're not being honest, because what will end up, what I project is, they're saying it's gonna be kumbaya, it's gonna be a black, African American one, and there'll be a Jewish one, and then maybe a woman's one will come in, and then maybe what's the other one y'all say?
The Native American.
The Native American will get involved, but the reality is, I was on those committees. Money is hard, and the black committee, I will say it, no one else will say it was not working in cohesive to raise the money. We could not raise the money. So what we're going to end up with in this town is one monument representing the Holocaust, which to me means it's going to represent, it's supposed to be, if it's representing the whole community, we're only going to have a Jewish monument on the green. Leave the green alone. It's beautiful.
I don't mean to.
I'm being honest.
No, wait a minute.
Everybody knows I'm always honest.
I can't talk.
Y'all can talk.
Not that way.
I'm not cutting you off, Laverne, in any kind of way. But the questions here this evening are for the deputy mayor and also for our councilwoman, for them to ask questions that are going on in the community. Not cutting you off, because it's a problem, an issue. So the question is going to them, then you need to ask it.
I do respect you, but I don't understand. This is major. This is why I'm having a problem.
No, I understand the question. I understand Laverne's question, so I'll address it. So let's just clarify what went down, all right? 'Cause there's a lot of history behind this. Over a decade ago, there was a project that came together. This is when Dr. Pruitt was on the council. It's called the Garden
of Human Understanding.
The Garden of Human Understanding. It was meant to be a joint initiative between the Holocaust Memorial Committee and the Enslaved African Committee. What happened a couple of months ago is that the council decided to decouple the project and allow them to continue as individual projects rather than one united project. And so the concern that I believe Laverne was raising is when you decouple them and one project moves ahead faster than the other, is there a concern that the optics of that may be problematic if only one is successful and the other is not? And so the problem is not with the Holocaust Memorial by itself, it's the fact that they were decoupled. So I just want to make sure, I want to clarify that piece.
Yes, I'm not politically correct.
Okay, So, so that's that. But I also wanted to share, I see Darryl Green has his hand up because he's been working with some folks. Let me just finish responding to this at one point. So there are folks in town who would like to see one project, not 5 or 6 different projects, but one project that addresses all the different marginalized communities, whether it's the Holocaust, whether it's Lenape Indians, whether it's enslaved Africans, whatever. So there are folks in town who are looking to see a unified project. I know Darryl Green has been talking to architects about what that might look like. I know Mayor Dunleavy has always been a proponent of one project. And so there are lots of people who have different opinions on it. But as we currently stand, Laverne is correct that the projects were decoupled, and right now they can proceed as individual projects.
Yeah, and to that point, if you want to say something to that point.
We have been working with the architects in Smith Group, and we did a presentation.
We can't hear you now.
I'm sorry, the Smith Group, Architecture Design of African American Museum in Washington, D.C. These two brothers are interested in doing something here in TNEC. The goal here is to have a unified structure that represents all of our community, and what we want to do, that's not just the Black community, the Jewish community, the Muslim community, the Native American community, and the African community. They will be coming here to see that. We got a follow-up call on Friday, and they will be interviewing. We're going to be asking for people to come forward and tell their story so that we can come up with a structure that will be something that we can all be proud of.
Yeah, so
Second,
yeah.
as far as the monuments there on the municipal green, I think everybody in this room can say that no one wants to see any more monuments on the municipal green.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Oh,
I
Nick.
actually spoke with Steve Fox yesterday, who's the memorial monument. He's not married to the idea of a monument on the municipal green. He told me himself he originally wanted something in the parks, and he's okay with going back to that. So we're trying to sit down and see how we can make that happen.
All right. Now we gave you a second chance. I'm not sure we can give everybody a second chance. Let me give you some history. The state of New Jersey gave TNEC $400,000 for these two groups to work together to put the monuments on the green. They were unable to successfully work together. And my view at the moment is, let's have a unified monument somewhere else. Who's next?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Abby McGrew. Some people call me Abby. I live on Gramercy Place. Hi, neighbors. Hi. So, I heard about this meeting tonight, and I came because I've lived in Teaneck my entire life. This town was never unified. I'm sorry, maybe at one point before I was born, but my mother, who moved here in 1962, talks about white flight then. That's number one. So, and the reality is this, the country that we live in, the world we live in, is not unified. So to have a 100% unified town is not really realistic. But part of the problem is people are allowed to move separately, to do separate things, to get approval to do what they want, and not everybody gets that. And that's why people feel like they're not heard, they're not appreciated, they're not seen. The meetings on Tuesday nights, my mother's 80 years old. She's not going to a meeting late at night. There needs to be other ways to get information out to the people in the community. If you have young children, if you work all day, if you work in New York, and you get home late, nobody wants to sit in a meeting until midnight, 11:30, listening to people who just, some of them want to hear themselves speak, ramble on all night long, and nothing gets done. So, speaking to my friend Donnie, who was talking when I walked in, we spoke earlier. And I said, if I were on the council, I already knew when you were running what you were up against. You can't do it by yourself. Because that council, we have watched them do things that are not for everybody. What are we living in? If this is supposed to be a democracy, let it be a democracy. There are people from all ethnicities, nationalities, religions, the whole shebang. Represent everyone. If you can't, step down. Step down. I don't understand. So of course, it's a lot. Y'all have to do a lot, and you can't do it by yourself.
You have to vote them
You
out.
gotta vote them.
Listen, I'm since 18, been voting, but my suggestion is whomever's on the council, whomever's a part of whatever board, tap 5 people. Let those people be your subcommittee. Where you can't be, they can show up. They can be your ears. They can be your eyes. They can voice things that maybe you can't because you're not present. You understand? Let those 5 people tap 5 more people. If it's a community, we gotta work as a community, because the reality is everybody in this town is not about community. They're about their own community, but they're not about the community. And it leaves a bad, I've had a bad taste in my mouth since junior high school, watching police escort certain people on certain days to their houses of worship, but now people that look like me on Sundays to our houses of worship. Come on, like what are we talking about here? It's ridiculous. People see that. But as long as we act like, well, there's this program happening and this is happening, and so it's all, it's not totally bad, but it's not totally good. I'm 45. I've been watching it. I'm a dog walker, by the way. I've been watching it. It's ridiculous. My parents sent me to school in New York City. You know why? Because they said, we want there to be some type of real community, real diversity, you mingling with your people, you learning about your heritage. That they sent me to school in New York my whole life. My brother and sister went to T-Neck schools. I did not, because my parents saw the shift happen. And they were like, we don't want you a part of this. That's sad. So now you with young children, why is it that what was happening when I was a child is still happening? That's insane. We're talking about decades of moving backward. I understand integration happened, 1940, whatever. It's 2024. Why are we even doing this? Where is everybody?
Our objective is to figure out the ways we can move forward.
I just want to say,
Let them answer.
one of the solutions you stated, and that is we have to duplicate ourselves. We have to show up in spaces where we need to show up and speak up. It's so vitally important that we be at council meetings, that we be at land use board meetings, that we get involved, even if you can't be there personally because you don't go out at night or whatever, but all of our meetings virtually on Zoom. So you can zoom in. Do you guys know the last 2 council meetings, we have had greater than 500 people waiting. In other words, how many people have texted me and said, I couldn't even get in? So if you don't show up at before 8 o'clock, there are people standing on line at 5 o'clock for an 8 o'clock meeting. So just showing up makes the difference. It makes a difference just showing up.
Can they make the meetings larger on Zoom also?
Oh, go ahead.
Something to look into, right?
I can look into that.
Come on, move. Come on, for it. We can't have everybody. She's fine.
Woo. My name is Willie Thornton, Sheffield Road, 981. Been in Teaneck too long. Okay? Teaneck was founded 1895. Why is it that we have elementary school for Thomas Jefferson still, that our kids get up and salute the flag? Why? Why isn't that an issue? Why haven't somebody said we got to change that? We have to change. We We just can't sit back and watch things like, happen over and over, and we moan and we talk about it. We don't do not one deep thing about it. We should not be celebrating Thomas Jefferson. Why? You talk about voting. I bet you those districts that you noted with the high percentage, they have the high money too. Because when we vote, we think we're doing something by registering to vote, but we don't follow through. We sit there, we get people to register, and they go about their business. But what we need dollars. We need dollars. If we're going to send people to the poll and fight for us, and we can't give $5, $10, $15, $20, $25 and more, what is wrong? 1895, and we're going to celebrate, we was the first to desegregate the schools. They're really not. Teaneck have this great facade that they put on. It's a wonderful place to live. It's suburban. But it's not. Because we got these big apartment buildings going up, it looks like somewhere else. It do not look like Teaneck, New Jersey. 07666. No, stop fooling ourselves. Stop getting up and saying things and go home for a bit. We have to do something. And my project is to change Thomas Jefferson Middle School. When you go to Thomas Jefferson Middle School and Benjamin Franklin, you see around the walls all the presidents, all the white men on the wall for our kids to look at. But there was no Barack Obama on that wall, people.
In all fairness, she left at that point, so she didn't finish with the principal come back to put. She
forgot. But we gotta stop. This is 2024. You came out here tonight, and we came because we want to support you guys. I don't want to be here tonight. I don't even feel good. But I said, you know what? If there's not a good showing to listen, they're going to say, look, they're not really interested. We are interested. We want to support you. Because you can't do it by yourself. You can't do it. You can't do it without dollars. You can't do it. We tried it. It's not working. We need to teach people how to vote. When people go to the poll, they go to the poll, they've never seen these machines. We need to set up classes to teach our young people how to vote. And we got to tell them why they're voting. We can't tell them, well, people died for your vote. It's like, really? Well, my people, they don't know their history because they're taking that out of the schools. They don't know. But it's up to us as we sit here in our comfortable, beautiful, it just sickens me. It just sickens me. Do something. Get up off your and do something.
Just a reminder to everybody sitting here, November 5th, Board of Education election, the Township Council election, and the possibility of electing a dictator. If you don't show up, you can't complain about what happened.
Yeah, I just want to say that is so vitally important because, a lot of times people think about voter suppression happens in Alabama, Mississippi, and so forth. But you guys know that our last municipal election happened in November only because some brave residents challenged courage to move the municipal always been in May, and they moved it to November, and it doubled voter participation.
Go ahead, we've been waiting for you.
Good, I hope not. Good evening, I'm Natasha Williams, resident, over 15 years here. And I just really wanted to ask for, what are the action items? Like, I need clear action steps. And maybe that means setting up different groups of people to do certain things, such as attend these meetings, because we can't all attend them. So maybe it's about having a few people sign up to say, I'm going to attend this month. Maybe it's a few people saying that I'm going to go around in the community and work with people in the South Side, as was mentioned, to get them registered, because what it really comes down to is the vote. It's nothing else really matters. Everything else is a wish list. Everything else is lip service. And it's surprising that we really need to be taking a page from the civil rights movement. And TNEC, I can't believe that this is happening here in TNEC. So it is really about being action-oriented and just really letting people know what are the key steps that we need to get things moving. Because I can tell you, I wasn't paying attention. I've been here, as I said, over 15 years. And I didn't start paying attention until I saw these buildings on State Street. That's when I started paying attention. When I realized it's taken me 20 minutes to get to ShopRite. Something is happening in this community, and I'm a native New Yorker. So I'm not with the whole, we all need to be together, kumbaya. We don't do that in Brooklyn. Right? But I am, because I'm a researcher, I'm a scholar, I'm very clear on quality of life. I'm very clear in understanding racism. So I don't attend the meetings generally. Every time when I watch them on Zoom, my blood pressure goes up because I realize I am paying taxes and I am witnessing structural racism right in front of me. And it is extremely difficult to tolerate. So I really need to know, what is the plan? I don't like meetings. I appreciate you having this. I came to support, but I really need to know, what is the plan?
So thank you for that. So Denise and I have been actually meeting weekly to answer that exact question. What is the plan, right? It is April, November, it's just a few months away. One of the first things we're looking for are for people to get engaged and volunteer. There are so many action items that we've already listed. So if you are here today and you are so moved and motivated to get involved, please come see us at the end. Give us your email address, your contact information, and we will have a follow-up with action items.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, there are so many ways in which you can get involved. We have a QR code that if you would like to give us your information, just click on the QR code and let us know that you're interested in volunteering. One thing I'm going to say, and I go back to the block associations, because I think there's so much power in our neighborhood associations, and that is, we are looking for people that want to be block captains. So if you live on your street and you know your neighbors and so forth, we feel that there is power in making sure that every one of our neighbors are registered to vote and they vote. That we have an actual plan to vote.
Actually, so that we don't waste time, Reshma has the barcode to sign up to volunteer. Raise your hand, and Reshma, do you mind walking over to them and having them stand?
So if you're interested in volunteering.
I see 3 people. Chuck, this young lady over here about the railroads, and Zaini. Let's see if we can get that through before the 9 o'clock.
Hi, just quickly, I'm Paul Rigovan. I'm going to ask Gloria Wilson if you could arrange for the people who signed, when we signed in, if they can be informed about the 4 neighborhood associations that we have already. There's 5 now. 5 neighborhood associations. And we'd like you to join them, because those 5 neighborhood associations have joined each other. And we have one called the Coalition of Neighborhood Associations for a Better Teaneck. So we'd love everyone here to be connected to one of the neighborhood associations. If there isn't one in your neighborhood, please work with us and form one. Because together we can get some of our goals met and we can get some people elected to work with you on the council. We know that's absolutely essential. We have taken a formal stand about the monuments. The Coalition of Neighborhood Associations for a Better Teaneck has said, we don't want any monument on the town green. No monuments on the town green. But what we do want, 2 things we want. One is we want an audit of what happened to the hundreds of thousands of state dollars that flowed into Teaneck. What happened? So we want to, and I know you've been working to get an audit and you got put down by other council members, but we know that there needs to be an audit. And we want money to be spent instead of monuments on educational resources, on forums, we want to educate each other because a piece of stone, a stone monument is not going to do the education work that we need. So I applaud you in fighting for an audit and fighting for educational resources. Thank you.
Two more hands.
Chuck, and Diane.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you, ladies, honestly, because I'm pretty sure you reached out to the counterparts, and they're not here to also listen to what's happening. But, yeah, we see it. So thank you.
If you're looking for a way of actually organizing this town for the next 5 months, we are committed to a new master plan in this town. The whole idea of doing the master plan was to say, we do not want what has happened to Margaret Baker to happen to the rest of this town. And we need a new way of defining what we want the town to look like. Well, in 2007, hundreds of us went to the high school auditorium, hundreds, until 1 o'clock at night. And we came up with something that would have actually, in the master plan, said, don't do to Margaret Baker's neighborhood what you just did. And
they did it anyway.
And they did it anyway. Now the question is, can we get ourselves as a whole community, across the whole group, now we have finally we're getting to a place where the planning board is charged by state statute with having us all involved in defining what we want. We want something different than what happened to Margaret Baker. We want something different than what they're planning in the area beside Cedar. We want Cedar Lane figured out to be someplace where people would actually want to go. How is it that we could define for ourselves the town we want in a master plan, and then we stop doing this craziness of saying we're going to throw out our zone because somebody wants to do a development that wipes out everything and gives them, in my judgment, we heard a little bit about pilots tonight. I believe, on the basis of the analysis that I've done, that every one of those pilots so far is going to end up costing this town, not benefiting this town. We, in fact, need a clear way of saying, planning board, give us a master plan, and we're committed as a community to electing people who will carry that out. And that is, in fact, a job that we should all be engaged in. And I hope that all of you, I'm certainly going to be part of it, I hope that all of you are going to be doing that. It is certainly something that the Coalition for Neighborhood Associations for 5 neighborhoods is fully committed to. We hope that we can get the rest of you involved as well. Thank you.
All right, Danny Wong, if she's still here. She's gone? Okay, Zion Wong, and then we're gonna thank everybody for coming out based on the Northeast Teenage Block Association. And then our two guests are gonna make some closing remarks.
I'm really quick. I just want to say that I just want to really appreciate the elders in the community. You guys have carried us through. When I see Dr. Pruitt, I see other elders in the community who've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years. And I just want to say that my sis back there said she was 45. I'm the same age. We need more people who are around my age group to be at these meetings, to be volunteering, to be activists. We don't see that enough. We definitely not. And you guys have been carrying us on your shoulders for all these years. And I definitely appreciate Deputy Mayor G and also Councilwoman Belcher for hosting this. But I know from here on, not here on, but people in my age group who have moved back to Teaneck, who grew up here in Teaneck, need to come here, come to these meetings, go to the council meetings, go to the Board of Ed meetings, watch them on Zoom, have discussions about it, because they do not know. It's a few of us who are doing the same things over and over again. We're seeing the same people at the meetings over and over again. And I know you guys are tired. I know you guys are tired. You know, and I see that, and I get very sad because I know you guys are exhausted. My mother, who will be right here with you guys, you know, my mother Lillian, she'll be right here with you. But you know, she takes care of my father now, and she was exhausted, but she's still in the fight. Just pray for her. But I really wish that people in the age group who I'm class of '96. You know what I'm saying? I came right back to Teaneck, and we were more involved, and that's what we're trying to do. Don't forget to vote November 5th. Y'all know about that already. Yeah. This is the age group that you guys know. You guys are there, you guys are protesting. I see Sister over there, she's protesting all the time. She does all those wonderful things. I know you're tired, you keep on going. People who are in my age group need to be out here too. It's very important. I got kids in the system. I got a son who's graduating high school. I understand the fight, and I appreciate my elders so much for carrying us all this way. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. I know it's almost 9 o'clock and we need to wrap. So I just want to say thank you all for coming out. You all were so engaged, had really tough questions for us, and really clearly identified that we have a lot of work to do. So we are here, we're ready to roll up our sleeves and work alongside of you. So if you need that barcode, please don't forget to find us, myself or Reshma, and we're looking forward to working together.
We thank the two of you.
Thank you very much. I just want to say we cannot do it without you. We feel your support when we're sitting up there in the minority, but we need you between now and November 5th to help us to affect change in our community.
Before we leave, which I didn't do in the beginning, I always try my best to say that that's the last. I would like to acknowledge the Northeast Teaneck Block President Association members, and we do have them here. Our Vice President is Dr. Henry Pruitt, who's here in the front. We have our Treasurer, Raymond Addison. We have our Correspondence Secretary, and if she would take a stand, because you can hardly see, Antoinette Duncan, who sends out Antoinette faithfully sends out all the emails to people, letting everyone know. We also have Lynette Hoffler, who's back, and also Laverne. They are our secretaries that are working. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Gloria Wilson, the president of the Northeast Teaneck Block. One of the things that I'm very, very happy about is that we are seeing brand new faces. And the key thing is, we have said it and we said it again. I have walked and put in people's mailboxes to come out, start in your block, a neighborhood association. Unity is power, and we know that. Come out to the council meetings to voice your opinion. One of the reasons why we have our deputy mayor here and our councilwoman here is because when you're in that 3-minute session or on Zoom, you're not being heard. So this is another way for you to present your questions. This is the first of our series, and it's not going to be the last. Somebody brought out about Board of Education. Quickly, about a couple of months back, we had the superintendent of schools. It upset me a lot because I wanted to see parents. I'm a great grandmother, and I'm there. Parents have to come out to get the questions answered for the Board of Education. We definitely need that. Get out, pass the word amongst yourselves. I'd also like to thank Officer Glory for coming out. We knew that with the crowd of people that we had, we weren't looking for ruckus, but we appreciate you for being there. Thank you very much. I want everyone to get home safe, and thank you again.